The story we thought we understood might have been a lie all along. What if everything, the prophecy, the book, the fate written in ink, was never the truth, but a trap waiting to be broken? Because the final chapter of Outlander isn't just ending a story, it's rewriting destiny itself. After 8 long seasons of love, war, sacrifice, and impossible choices, Outlander has reached the moment it has been building toward from the very beginning. And this time, it doesn't feel like just another battle or another twist. It feels Maynol, the kind of Maynol that changes everything we thought we knew. The trailer for episode 10, titled "And the World Was All Around Us," doesn't just tease an ending, it quietly warns us that not everyone may survive it. What makes this finale different is the weight of certainty. For the first time in the story, the future is not just feared, it is known. Brianna didn't just imagine what might happen, she brought proof. A book written by Frank Randall, a historian who had already seen how history unfolds, clearly states that Jaime Fraser dies at the Battle of King's Mountain. Not maybe, not possibly, dies. And that single piece of information changes everything. Because Outlander has always played with time, but never like this. Before, the future was flexible, mysterious, uncertain. Now it feels fixed, written, almost impossible to escape. And that creates a different kind of tension. Not what will happen, but can it be stopped? The trailer leans heavily into this feeling. There's a quietness beneath all the chaos, a sense that every moment we are seeing is leading to something inevitable. Jaime is no longer just a warrior preparing for battle. He feels like a man standing in front of his own ending, fully aware of what's coming. And yet, he doesn't run from it. That's what makes this so powerful. Jaime Fraser has never been a man who accepts fate easily. He fights, he resists, he protects. But here, there's a shift. Not weakness, acceptance mixed with defiance. The kind that says, if this is my end, I will meet it on my terms. And then there's Claire. If Jaime represents destiny, Claire represents rebellion against it. Her entire existence in the past is proof that time can be challenged, that history is not as unchangeable as it seems. And in this final chapter, everything about her character is being pushed to its absolute limit. The trailer shows her focused, intense, almost desperate. Not emotional in a loud way, but in a controlled, determined way. The kind of focus that comes when someone refuses to lose the person they love, no matter what the cost is. Claire is not just preparing to heal wounds anymore. She is preparing to fight death itself. And that is where the real conflict of this finale begins, because this is no longer just about a battle between armies. It's about a battle between fate and choice, between what is written and what can be rewritten. At the center of all of this is Fraser's Ridge, the home they built, the life they created, the place that represents everything they've fought for. The trailer opens with it looking stronger, fuller, more alive than ever before. And that is not a coincidence. It feels like a reminder of what's at stake. This is not just land, it's legacy, family, love, a future that might disappear if Jaime's fate comes true. And that's what makes every shot feel heavier. Every glance between characters feels like it might be the last. Every quiet moment feels like it's hiding something deeper. Even the peace feels temporary, like the calm before something devastating. But what truly changes the game is the idea that maybe the future isn't as certain as it seems. Because Outlander has already shown us something important. The past can be altered. Events can shift. Outcomes can change. The house fire that was once recorded in history didn't happen the way it was supposed to. Which means one thing. Frank's book might not be the full truth. And if that's the case, then everything we're expecting could be wrong. This is where the brilliance of the story comes in. It places the characters and the audience in a position where belief itself becomes a question. Do you trust history, or do you trust the people trying to change it? Because if Jaime is meant to die, then every action from this point forward becomes a fight against something bigger than war, bigger than enemies, bigger than time itself. It becomes a fight against inevitability. And that's why this finale feels so different. It's not just about how the story ends. It's about whether the story can be changed at all. As the trailer unfolds, it becomes clear that every character is carrying their own piece of this emotional weight. Brianna, who brought the truth from the future. Roger, trying to hold everything together. William, torn between loyalty and identity. And Claire, standing at the center of it all, refusing to accept a reality where Jamie doesn't survive. Everything is moving toward one moment. One battle, one decision that could either confirm the future or destroy it completely. And the most haunting part, we still don't know which one it will be. Because if there's one thing Outlander has always done perfectly, it's making sure that just when you think you understand the story, it changes the rules. There is something very deliberate about the way this trailer is built. It doesn't rush. It doesn't overwhelm with action. Instead, it carefully places each moment like a clue, like a message that only reveals its meaning if you're paying close attention. And once you start looking beyond what is being shown, you realize something unsettling. The trailer isn't just showing us what will happen, it's hiding what truly matters. Because the biggest moments in this preview are not the loud ones. They are the quiet, almost still moments. The pauses, the looks, the silence between words. That's where the real story is unfolding. Take Jamie, for example. We see him standing, watching, thinking. There is no panic in him, no visible fear. And that alone feels strange, considering he knows what Brianna's book says. A man who has been told the exact place and time of his death should be shaken. But Jamie isn't. Instead, there's a calmness to him that feels almost resolved. And that raises a powerful question. Is Jamie preparing to fight fate, or has he already accepted it? Because those are two very different things. If he's planning to survive, we would expect to see urgency, strategy, maybe even doubt. But what we're seeing instead feels like closure, like a man making peace with what's coming. And if that's true, then the emotional weight of this finale becomes even heavier, because it suggests that Jamie might not be trying to escape his fate at all. But here's where it gets complicated. Outlander has never been a story where one perspective tells the whole truth. And while Jamie may seem ready to accept what's written, Claire is clearly not. Every glimpse of Claire in the trailer carries a completely different energy. Where Jamie is calm, Claire is focused. Where Jamie seems still, Claire is in motion. Her intensity is not just about healing anymore. It feels like she's searching for something. A solution, a possibility, a way to break the outcome that has already been written. And that contrast between them is incredibly important, because it sets up the central emotional conflict of the finale. Not just fate versus choice, but belief versus resistance. Jamie may believe that some things cannot be changed. Claire refuses to believe that. And when two people who love each other this deeply stand on opposite sides of that idea, something has to give. But the trailer doesn't stop there. It begins to quietly shift our attention towards something even more unpredictable. The idea that this story might not be following the path we think it is. Because scattered throughout the trailer are small, almost easy-to-miss details that suggest something bigger is at play. The way certain scenes are cut together, the way reactions don't always match what we expect, the way moments feel slightly out of order. It creates a subtle feeling that what we are seeing might not be the full picture. And that brings us to one of the most important possibilities. What if the trailer is misleading us on purpose? What if the story we think is heading toward Jamie's death is actually building toward something completely different? Outlander has done this before. It has used history as a guide, but never as a limitation. It has shown us that records can be wrong, that truth can be incomplete, that what is written is not always what actually happened. So when we are told, through Frank's book, that Jamie dies at King's Mountain, we have to ask ourselves, is that fact or is that assumption? Because history only records what it sees. And if Jamie Fraser were to disappear, to step away from the world in a way that leaves no trace, history would still mark him as dead. And suddenly, a new possibility opens up. Not death, but disappearance. Not an ending, but an escape. And if that's the direction the story is going, then everything we're watching in this trailer takes on a completely new meaning. Jamie's calmness is no longer acceptance of death. It could be preparation for something else. Something hidden. Something that requires him to let the world believe he is gone. But if that's true, then Claire's role becomes even more critical, because she would have to be part of that plan, or she would have to discover it too late. And that's where the emotional tension reaches another level, because the trailer also hints at distance between them. Not physical distance, but emotional separation. Moments where they are not fully aligned. Moments where something is unspoken. And in a story where communication between Jamie and Claire has always been their greatest strength, silence becomes dangerous. It creates doubt. It creates fear. It creates the possibility that even they might not be able to face this ending together. Meanwhile, other characters begin to carry their own weight in the background. William, caught between identities, seems closer than ever to confronting the truth about who he really is. His presence in the trailer feels tense, unresolved. Like he is being pulled toward a moment that will force him to choose, not just between sides in a war, but between versions of himself. And that choice could have consequences that go far beyond his own story. Because if William stands on the opposite side of Jamie in the battle, then the conflict becomes more than historical. It becomes deeply personal. A father and son divided not just by war, but by truth. And the trailer doesn't give us an answer. It only gives us the feeling that something painful is coming. At the same time, Brianna and Roger seem to represent something different. Stability, but fragile stability. They feel like the anchor of the future. The connection between what was and what will be, but even that stability feels uncertain, as if the events of the finale could shake everything they've built. Because if time itself begins to shift, then nothing is truly safe. And that idea brings us to the most mysterious layer of the trailer, the sense that time is not finished playing its role in this story. There are hints, small but undeniable, that something unusual is still waiting to happen. Something that goes beyond war, beyond history, beyond what we've already seen, and that something could change everything. Because if time has already been bent once, who's to say it can't be bent again? And if it can, then the ending we're expecting might not be the ending we get. The trailer doesn't confirm this. It doesn't explain it. It simply plants the idea and lets it grow, which is exactly what makes it so powerful. Because by the time you reach the end of this preview, you're not just asking what will happen, you're questioning everything you thought you knew. And that is when a story becomes truly dangerous. Not when it gives you answers, but when it takes them away. Just when it feels like the story is narrowing down to one inevitable outcome. Outlander does what it has always done best. It breaks its own rules. And this time, it does it in a way that completely changes how we understand the ending. Because the biggest twist hidden inside this trailer isn't about the battle. It's not even about Jamie. It's about time itself becoming unpredictable again. For most of this season, the focus has been grounded. War, family, identity, survival. The time travel element, once the heart of the story, has been quietly sitting in the background. Almost like the show wanted us to forget just how powerful and dangerous it really is. And now, right at the end, it comes back, but not in the way we expected. The introduction of a new time traveler this late in the story is not just surprising, it's disruptive. It shakes the structure of everything we thought was already set. Because if someone new has the ability to move through time, then the timeline itself is no longer stable. And that changes the entire game. Fanny's presence in the trailer feels different from every other character. There's something unpredictable about her, something that doesn't fully belong to the same rhythm as the rest of the story. While everyone else is moving toward the battle, toward a clear and defined moment in history, Fanny feels like she's moving outside of it. And that's important, because when a story introduces a character who is not bound by the same rules as everyone else, that character becomes the key to breaking the outcome. The hints surrounding her are subtle, but they're there. Moments that feel slightly off. Reactions that carry more weight than they should. And most importantly, the suggestion that she is connected to something much deeper than anyone realizes. Not just to time travel, but to the very core of the Fraser family. And once that connection becomes clear, the emotional impact of this twist becomes almost overwhelming. Because if Fanny is truly part of that bloodline, then she isn't just a new character, she is a continuation of something that was thought to be lost forever. A living answer to a question that has been haunting Claire and Jamie for decades. And suddenly, the story is no longer just about survival. It becomes about restoration, about healing something that time had once broken. But here's where the tension rises again. Because having the power to travel through time does not automatically mean knowing how to use it. And it definitely doesn't mean understanding the consequences. If Fanny chooses to use this ability, or is forced to, then every action she takes could create ripple effects across the timeline. Effects that might not just change the future, but rewrite the past in ways no one can predict. And that introduces a level of uncertainty that even Claire, with all her experience, may not be able to control. Because until now, time travel in Outlander has followed a certain emotional logic. It has been driven by love, by loss, by the need to return or to protect. But with Fanny, that logic feels less clear. Her motivations are different. Her understanding is incomplete, and that makes her incredibly powerful, but also incredibly dangerous. The trailer doesn't show us exactly what she does. It doesn't confirm whether she travels, or when, or why. But it plants the possibility. And once that possibility exists, it changes everything about how we interpret the ending. Because now, Jamie's fate is no longer just in his own hands, or Claire's, or even history's. It might be in the hands of someone who hasn't yet fully realized what she is capable of. And that creates a new kind of tension, one that goes beyond war and into something much more unpredictable. The tension of potential. Of what if? What if the battle still happens, but the outcome is different? What if Jamie is meant to die, but something interrupts that moment? What if the timeline itself shifts just enough to create a new path? And here's the most powerful possibility of all. What if this isn't about saving Jamie at all? What if it's about completing something that was left unfinished? Because if there is one emotional thread that has never truly been resolved in this story, it's the loss that Claire and Jamie carried with them for so long. A loss that shaped who they became, that influenced every choice they made, that stayed with them even in their happiest moments. A wound that never fully healed. And now, with the introduction of this new element, this new connection, the story has a chance to do something extraordinary. Not just change the future, but revisit the past, to go back to a moment that defined everything, and see it differently. That is the true power of time travel in storytelling. Not just the ability to move through time, but the ability to reframe it. To take something that was once only pain and give it meaning. And if the finale chooses to go in that direction, then the emotional impact could be far greater than any battle. Because saving a life is powerful, but healing a lifetime of loss, that changes everything. Still, the trailer keeps its secrets. It never shows us the full picture. It only gives us fragments. And those fragments create a feeling, a quiet, growing realization that this ending is not going to be simple. It's not going to follow a straight line. It's going to twist, shift, and possibly break everything we expect before putting it back together in a way we didn't see coming. And that's what makes this section of the story so important, because it reminds us of something we almost forgot. Outlander is not just a historical drama. It's not just a love story. It's a story about time. And time, in this world, has never been as stable as it seems. As we move closer to the final moments, one thing becomes clear. The battle may decide what happens in history, but time will decide what truly lasts. And if time itself is about to change, then no fate is truly sealed. As the finale approaches, the story begins to strip everything down to its most powerful core. Beyond the war, beyond the mystery, beyond even time itself, what remains is something far more intense. Love under pressure. Not the soft, romantic kind, but the kind that has survived distance, loss, betrayal, and decades of impossible choices. And now, that love is being pushed to its absolute breaking point. Because this is not just about whether Jamie lives or dies. It's about what Claire is willing to risk to keep him alive. The trailer quietly builds this emotional tension through contrast. Moments of closeness are placed next to moments of distance. There's a sense that even when Jamie and Claire are physically near each other, something stands between them. Something unspoken, something heavy. And that something is the knowledge of what might happen. Claire knows the future, or at least she believes she does, and that knowledge is both her greatest weapon and her greatest burden.